The myth we'll be discussing today is myth 38. Most mentally ill people are violent, by Vincent Olson
Rachel Gavin,
Savannah Martinez,
Samantha Miles.
and Alexa Balance. What is our myth? Our myth is that most mentally ill people are in fact violent, that being mentally ill can lead to an individual being violent or in fact dangerous. One quote we found is that the vast majority of Americans believe that persons with mental illnesses pose a threat for violence towards others and themselves. Some background information on our myth is that many American people believe that people with a mental illness are almost always violent. A 2006 national survey found, for example, that 60% of Americans thought that people with schizophrenia were likely to act violently towards someone else, while 32% thought that people with major depression were likely to do so. Also, the media plays a big role in portraying these people in a bad way, and that contributes to a growth of this myth.
Unfortunately, there's a significant amount of stigma surrounding people suffering from mental illness, and a large contributor to this stigma is the media. Popular films such as American Psycho, Halloween, Silence of the Lambs, and Psycho play a huge role in how the public sees mentally ill people. The characters in these films are portrayed as violent, aggressive, and incapable of compassion. The main problem with this is that the majority of the knowledge people have about mental illness stems from the media and how they portray it, leading the public to develop severely false beliefs about this subject. These false beliefs play a detrimental role on how people are seen and treated. Thomas Insel, a neuroscientist and a psychiatrist, participated in a TED Talk where he discussed the difference between mental and physical disability. He focused on the time, money, and attention each receive in the medical field. In the chart being displayed, you can see the major improvements made for physical disabilities, such as leukemia, heart disease, AIDS, and stroke, where thousands of lives are saved each year. These treatments were developed through early development and prevention. Unfortunately, when it comes to suicide, the third most common cause of death between the ages 15 and 25, very few improvements have been made, not due to it being incurable or untreatable, but because of the lack of time, money, and attention going into the treatments for mentally ill people.
Although many people believe that people with a mental illness are violent, according to the American Psychological Association, no predictable pattern between criminal behavior and mental illness symptoms could be found over time. A study showed that 2/3 of offenders who had committed crimes that related to their illness symptoms had also committed unrelated crimes because of various factors. These factors include poverty, unemployment, substance abuse, and homelessness. Researchers analyzed a total of 429 crimes committed by 143 offenders with 3 major mental illnesses to come to these conclusions. Other studies have also shown that the mentally ill are more likely to be a victim of a violent crime rather than engage in violence. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, only about 3 to 5% of violent acts can be attributed to mental illnesses. The truth about mental illness is that they are actually more common than people believe. 1 in 5 Americans live with a serious mental illness such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or major depression. Mental illnesses are not always apparent. Many people living with mental illnesses, as well as people in their communities, don't always recognize the illness because they are active and productive members of our community. While the mentally ill are usually portrayed as the perpetrators, mentally ill people are 10 times more likely to be the victim of a violent crime than the general population. They are also not any more likely to exhibit violent behaviors. In an Australian study done in 2006, 130 patients were asked questions about their treatment. 87.7% reported a lifetime of victimization, 84% experienced physical assault, and 59.5% experienced sexual assault at some point in their lives.
In 2015, I was hospitalized into a mental health institution for clinical depression. During the week I was there, there were around 10 to 15 patients that would come and go. The floor I was on was for minors, ages 12 to 17, and the patients had a variety of mental illnesses. There were no instances of violence throughout my experience. Everyone was focused on helping themselves and each other. For instance, we made a goal for ourselves every morning, and if you completed your goal, everyone would say proud of you. The overall experience was very encouraging.
In conclusion to our myth, our findings show that mentally ill people are not any more violent than the general public.
Reference page.